Hi, my name's Katie Cole. I'm the Program Manager for the National Fishing in Schools program, and we're happy to have you participating with us in Fishing in Schools. To introduce the concept of fly fishing to your students, we're going to set up the water scene target. Let's get familiar with the target frame. First, we have the leg, which has a hub. It adjusts in two ways. With this lower dial, we adjust the leg back and forth. We want to set this up so it's consistent, so we're going to have the leg be perpendicular to the hub. We can then also adjust the hub, if we need to, by loosening this dial, and we can rotate the hub on its axis. We want to make sure that the two openings on top and two on the bottom are in line with the leg. We'll then remove the four arms from the bag and place them one by one in the holes on the hub. You can set that down on the ground and put the other two in. You can always have your students help you out with this as well. We'll then take the face, and I usually start with the top, taking the grommet openings over the pegs, and then I'll come to the bottom. These arms flex and bend and rotate out so it keeps the face tight on the frame. Then we can use the target translator to set the stickums up on the water scene target appropriately. So referencing the target translator, I'm going to put my stickums on. Fly fishing started because we saw live insects coming off the water and fish were eating them. So what we're showing here are the three major insects that we imitate in fly fishing: the caddisfly, the mayfly, and the stonefly. Each insect, caddisfly, mayfly, stonefly, have an above water stage and an underwater stage. Collectively, these flies are called dry flies, and collectively the underwater imitations and insects are called nymphs. So again, the water scene's a great tool to educate our students about the concept of fly fishing. A great way to introduce fly casting to your students is to use the tip of your fly rod and string it up with fly line. By pulling about 10 to 15 feet off the reel, I can set the reel down on the ground and string up the tip of the rod. Taking a bite in the fly line and feeding it up through each of the guides and pulling a short amount through. What this does is allow you to share with your students the concept of load in the rod and how we cast the fly line to get the fly out to the fish rather than the weight of the bait. So the difference between fly fishing and other forms of fishing is that we're casting the line, not the weight of the lure. Now that you've introduced your students to this concept of fly fishing using the water scene target, let's go into the studio and share with them some equipment as well as some basics in the fly cast. When we introduce the equipment to your students, you want to reference the target translator. Okay, here are all the pieces of equipment you'll need to get started in fly fishing. A fly rod, reel with fly line backing and leader, additional leaders, tippet material, forceps and nippers, dry fly floatant, strike indicators, flies, fly box, and one of the most crucial parts of the whole puzzle, our eye protection, polarized sunglasses. Most rods today come in hard protective cases. Also, some are wrapped in rod socks. Most fly rods come in 4 pieces. The 4 sections we have are the rod butt, the 2 center pieces, and the tip section. Generally, when I put the rod back into its rod sock, I like to put the tips down just to protect them when I put them back into the case. Fly rods are classified in 5 ways: by length, weight, which means the fly line weight that balances with a particular rod, the number of pieces, the material it's made of, and the flex of the rod. That designation is printed here on the butt of the rod. This particular rod is an 8-foot, 4-weight, 4-piece rod made of graphite. I want to quickly talk about flex. Flex in a rod means where it bends, where it's loaded by the fly line. Imagine this tip section is the whole rod. Full flex means that the rod flexes really from the butt up to the tip, all the way. Mid flex means that the rod's going to bend really from the mid part of the rod up to the tip. And tip flex means right up here at the top. For beginning anglers, a mid-flex rod is usually the easiest to cast. Fly rods are comprised of various components. Let's start with the butt section. This piece on the end of the rod is called the butt cap. This is the reel seat, where we'll place the reel. The grip, hook keeper. Where we connect the 2 pieces is called the ferrule. This particular rod has markers on it. Small white dots that designate where we line up the pieces. A very helpful tool when we're connecting our 2 sections together and adding on the 2 additional. The second piece on the rod has the stripping guide. It's a little stouter guide than the next guide down towards the tip, called the snake guide. The third piece has 2 snake guides, and the tip section has 4 snake guides and a tip guide. Reel components consist of the reel foot, the handle, the counterbalance, which just balances with the handle on the reel, the line guard, and the drag dial, which is on the back of the reel. To tighten the drag on the reel, you're going to turn the drag to the right. To loosen it, you're going to turn it to the left. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This just creates resistance on the line being pulled out from the reel. On the front of the reel, we have the arbor, which is the center of the reel, and we also have the spool and the frame. To separate the spool from the frame, this particular reel releases by pushing on this lever here and separating the 2 pieces, the frame from the reel spool. Most reels today come set up for left-hand retrieve, which means that the caster reels with their left hand. The reel sits below the rod like this. When we reel, we always reel away from ourselves and make sure that we're moving the reel handle up and then down, up and then down, and away from ourselves, not towards ourselves like this. Okay, now we're going to attach the reel to the rod. So when we set this reel up and are going to attach it to the rod, we need to make sure that the handle's on the left side. Underneath the rod grip is an indentation to receive the reel foot. We'll take the front end of the reel foot and slide it up into the indentation underneath the rod grip. We'll then place the sleeve over the back end of the reel foot, moving it and rotating it until we find the indentation on the sleeve. We'll then take the reel ring and rotate it forward and tighten it up against the sleeve that goes over the back end of the reel. We want to wiggle it just a little bit to make sure it's nice and snug, and we're ready to start. Let's talk about fly lines. There's 3 parts to the fly line. The first part attaches to the inside of the reel called the arbor, which is the backing. Attached to the backing is the fly line, and attached to the fly line is the leader. Fly lines are classified in 3 ways: by their taper, by their weight, and by their buoyancy. Weight forward fly lines are the majority of fly lines used today. However, there are other tapers, like a double tapered, which is designated by DT, or other bass bug tapers or saltwater tapers. But for majority of freshwater fishing, we're going to use weight forward or a double taper fly line. And the majority of them are going to be floating. There are some sinking lines, and there's also some floating sinking lines, which means the back part floats and the front part sinks. But these are very specialized things that we aren't going to be using as beginners. Each fly line has a sticker with its classification on it. I recommend that every time you put a new fly line on your reel, you take that sticker and you place it on the inside of the reel. Separate the spool from the frame and just simply take the sticker and lay it on the inside. This way we know what kind of fly line we have on our spool. Leaders are what make us invisible to fish. They're a really important part of the whole fly fishing process. Leaders are classified in two ways, by length and tippet size. Traditionally, leaders came in lengths of 7.5 feet, 9 feet, and 12 feet. Today, they come anywhere from 6 to 16 feet and everything in between. The X designation in freshwater fishing is classified from OX to 8X, and it's reverse thinking. OX is actually thicker than 8X, and all that means is that it's so many hundredths of an inch in diameter at the tip end of the leader, the last 20 inches of the leader. For most freshwater fishing, you'll probably use tippet sizes from 3X to 6X. The reason I suggest a shorter leader for a beginning caster is because we want success in turnover. Turnover is the fly line and leader laying out flat in front of the forward cast. The longer the leader it is, it's harder to get that fly line and leader to turn over and lay straight. To have more success in the beginning, the shorter the leader, a little stouter the leader, the more success we're going to have with turnover.